Welcome to Loving Beyond the I Do podcast. This power couple is building stronger marriages one day at a time. Talking about real issues on love, relationships, and marriage longevity. Let's break down the barriers and engage in healthy conversation with your hosts, Jason and Tina Marie. Take a seat and buckle up because things are about to get real.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Loving Beyond the I Do podcast.
With your hosts, Jason and Tina Marie.
That's me. All right, Jason. So who do we have in the studio with us today?
In the studio today, we have Wendi Dumbroth. Wendi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am just turned 60 years old. I've been married for 31 years. I have two sons. One is 30. He just got married. And one is 27, single and adorable.
All right.
And I'm a mom first and foremost. And I think at heart, that's what I am. And in my past life, I used to be a pharmacist, believe it or not, my undergraduate education. And when I was about in my early 40s, I decided was a long thought out passion of mine to go back to school to be a therapist. So back in 2005 or so, I entered graduate school and became a licensed professional counselor. And then I subsequently did postgraduate training in family and couple therapy. And I really love doing couple therapy. So subsequent to the couple therapy, I did training the postgraduate couple and family therapy at the Ackerman Institute in New York. I did training in sex therapy.
Okay.
Yes.
So you said you like couples therapy. Is it just couples or don't do family at all? Even though family dynamics is the man and the woman, but do you still do family or is it just couples?
I do a lot more couples therapy. It's probably my passion is in couples therapy. However, couples therapy is family therapy. And sometimes we end up bringing the kids in, or sometimes we end up bringing in a mom or a dad or grandma.
Yeah, the problem people in our marriage, not us, but the other people.
We're fine, right?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with us. We're perfect.
Right. So let's go back to this. You said you also did sex therapy. Mm-hmm. So one of my little sayings that I say is that sex doesn't make the marriage, but sex will definitely break a marriage. So what do you think about that saying and sex in general with couples?
Well, I think that can be very true. Not always, right? If two people don't have sex, but each is okay with that, there's no problem, right? But the most common thing that couples come to sex therapy for is discrepant desire. One person wants sex more than the other. Mm-hmm. Or I find, a lot of in my practice, we're just not really having sex. So what do we do? Mm-hmm. Or there's been some sort of breach of trust, and it's hard to come back to a sexual relationship. So I have worked with people where they have said, listen, if we're not going to have sex, I cannot stay in this marriage. I've worked with people that have said, if we're not going to have sex, I don't know if I'm going to leave, but I really want to work on this and I want to have sex.
Okay. So
now, when you said, is that infidelities you're describing when you said that it's when it's hard to come back together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Infidelities of some sort. It could be a loving relationship. It could be some, a relationship where a person had another relationship with one person. It could be things like finding out there have been prostitutes or strip clubs that were unknown, or other sort of different sexual behaviors that were hidden.
Okay.
So during your 31 years of marriage, and up until a point, you were a pharmacist, and you turn to your husband, you say, "Honey, I'm gonna become a couples therapist," and what does he turn to you and say? I'm going to leave pharmacy.
Well, it's funny. It's an interesting question. I did stop working. I was actually working in pharmaceutical industry, mainly as a salesperson. So I kind of always liked talking to people. I think that was there from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I stopped working for a time when my children were born. So there was a period of time where I didn't work. And then when I was getting back into the workforce, I was thinking about what do I really want to do here? And I decided to pursue the passion that I had thought about for so long. And I asked my husband, I did ask him, I said, what did you think when I went back to school? And he's like, I was a little worried that like you might change. Right. And like become this like therapist kind of whatever. I don't know what he thought, but a little concerned that there might be something that caused a change that would affect us.
Sure. You may look at your relationship a little differently.
He may still think you've changed.
Yeah,
you
because
just
then he starts diagnosing their relationship. Sure.
Right. Of course. And I have changed. And I hope that I continue to evolve. Like I don't ever want to stop growing and changing and understanding who I am and what I do and how we interact together.
Now, getting into couples therapy and therapy in general, do you think it has helped your relationship personally?
Absolutely. It's helped my relationship. It's helped my relationship, firstly, to do my own work in individual therapy. It's going through this education as an adult and as a mom. I think not only did it make me a different kind of partner, but a different kind of mom, right? Recognizing, being able, one other thing that I do, by the way, is I do a lot of work with mindfulness and meditation. And one other thing I did, I guess I didn't think of this when I was introducing myself, but subsequent to all of that other training, I did a mindfulness meditation teacher certification program. Mm-hmm. And that has been one of the most useful things in my life. That's another thing my husband was a little worried about, right? It's like, are you going to come back like a guru?
Come out of the mountains and be like, "Ooh, life is wonderful."
It's funny. I went on a silent retreat a number of years ago. It was about a 9 to 10 day silent retreat. And I came home to my family sitting in, so I've been away, hadn't talked to anybody because it's silent retreat. I'm not talking. I came home to them all sitting in my bedroom like this, pretending to be monks. It's like, I cracked up.
Was cute. That was cute.
So yes, it has made me more mindful, more the ability to stop and pause, to understand what's going on inside of me if I feel reactive, especially with my children, understanding like that dynamic is so important. There's so often times parents, I think, put a lot of their adult stuff onto their kids.
Absolutely.
Not consciously necessarily, but it's not their job to hold our
baggage.
Stuff. Yeah.
Right.
And so we really need, and with the goal in mind of always having a close and connected relationship with my children, my sons. If I'm doing something that's pushing us further apart, then I don't want to continue that. And so I think, yes, made me a different kind of partner and a different kind of mom, and I hope all for the better. And by the way, that doesn't mean we don't set boundaries, and that doesn't mean we don't have rules and structure. That just means that there's the ability to say, "Oh, you're unhappy with me? What's happening for you? Tell me that." Right?
I wish you had a daughter. I could probably pick your brain with that, because I think boys are with their moms sometimes are a little easier. Or the connection, it's a little different than the connection with the daughter. So when you said, when you're speaking with your sons and you're like, okay, is it something that I'm doing that's making you unhappy? I think it may be a little bit harder doing that with daughters. So I guess I just have to continue to go down that road.
It may be, but you can still, at work, I have a mom and I try. And I've worked with parents, mothers, daughters, adult adult children and their parents as well. And, I think that, yes, you go with the temperament of the person as well. But you really can, even with a daughter, by just taking a breath and saying, okay, you sound really upset. Let me see what's going on for you. It's the idea of just validating whether it's our partner or our child.
Children.
When you can say to them, if they're telling you, look at me, Mom, I'm standing in this rain. And we say to them, no, you're not standing in the rain. It's sunny. Right.
The validation there.
They're going to fight tooth and nail to say, no, I'm in the rain.
Right.
And until you can say, oh, I see you in the rain and you're cold and it's stormy and you don't have a jacket and you're all wet and you're just shivering to the bone. It's not my experience, but I see that that's where you are and it's hard to be there.
Wonderful. So what are some of the things that maybe you and your spouse have talked about that once you going back to school, even with the mindfulness training and the therapist training, has he come to you and said, like, this has played a huge role in our marriage, or this has I see this part right here as being beneficial from where we used to be to where we are now? Anything like that happen in your relationship?
Well, he has not come to me and said that.
Okay.
that just means I need to have a conversation with him. The only thing I ask for accolades around is my cooking, because I happen to be a very good cook. And so when he's eating something and he's enjoying it and I say, well, and he'll say, it's delicious. And I'll say, and do you know why? And he knows that he has to say, it's because you're a very good cook, right?
I love that.
Right? But no, he hasn't said that. However, in more tacit ways, he will come to me and say, what do you think I should do about this? Or, he trusts my view and my opinion. And even like most recently, I had something that happened between us where I felt really reactive, and I was reactive to him. And later, probably this was maybe over a couple of weeks, something came up that was similar. And I said to him, and he was angry with me because it's when it happened again. And I said, you're right. I said, I am overreacting, but I need to talk to you about this because I've been thinking about it and trying to understand why I feel so triggered when this happens. And he got a little annoyed. He was like, yeah, you were like ready to kill. And I was like, when you react like that, that's going to shut me down. So can you please, I'm really trying to be vulnerable here and tell you what was happening with me. And then he calmed down and he said, I'm sorry, I hear that it was sincere. And I explained to him what was going on for me. Right. And so I don't know that he's ever come and said to me, oh God, our marriage is so great because you're a couples therapist.
No, not that. He would never say that.
As great as your cooking, right?
Say that. Not as good as my cooking. Right.
So it's good that you mentioned that. So, couple of weeks back, we had a Friday Night Live where we were talking with other couples, about, being reactive or doing something in the past and not apologizing for it. So the question at that time, I think someone asked was, what do you do when your mate has done something, obviously either reactive or was not right, but they will not apologize. Right. So what do you think about that? Because a lot of answers were given. And so for those who may be still listening, who are sitting there waiting for their mate to apologize and it never happens, how do you move forward? Right. So just given, the scenario of what you just said. So something happened, you were reactive, then it happened again. So now you're reactive again, which constantly goes in the marriage if we're not discussing what the issue is.
Yeah, that is a really good question. And in truth, we can't make anybody do anything. We can only control. We can't even control how we feel or the thoughts that come to us, The only thing that any of us have control over is what we actually do. What is our behavior? What am I going to do with this? And I always like the quote from Viktor Frankl that says, between the stimulus and the response, there's a space. And in that space is your power and your freedom. And that's the space of mindfulness. That's the space of awareness. Because when something happens and we're reactive, that's reactivity. When we do this, then we can respond, right? Because we get in touch with what's happening inside, in there, what's going on. And not everybody's going to do that. Some people are going to be really reactive and they're just going to say, I don't care what you think. And no, I'm not apologizing. That's their defenses, right? If I have a couple in a therapy situation, right? What I try and find out, I try and interactionalize what happens between people, because I don't look at things as linear, as you did this,
and
so you're the problem, so you fix him or fix her or fix them, and then everything will be okay. If only they didn't do this. But I look at really what happens between people circularly. That's systemic therapy, like when you look at what happens between people. And when you can externalize the cycle, right, then you've got a team. Like, so Joe, when you get angry, you shut down. And when you got angry that Mary didn't take your clothes off to the dry cleaning, you yelled and screamed, and you shut down, and then you shut down. And she came after you when you shut down, and she kept pursuing you. And the more she pursued you and said, I can't believe you yelled at me so much. I just forgot. Why are you being such a jerk? Right? The more she yelled and screamed, the more you shut down. Right? And then it becomes this thing. And you say, no, I'm not apologizing. You didn't take my stuff to the dry cleaner. So if I have that couple, I want to know what happened, the content, but what were they feeling? Right? What were they feeling? Because underneath Joe's anger and shutdown, perhaps there's a feeling of, I didn't matter enough to you. And so it's not often about the content of what happened. And I'll often say couples have one fight, because when you drill down and underneath it, there's that feeling of, I didn't matter enough to my partner for them to remember to take my clothes to the dry cleaner. And now this person, what do they feel when somebody shuts down? That may increase anxiety for them. So they pursue to try and get a reaction. But the more they pursue, the more the person shuts down. So I interactionalize it. I try and show people what happens and how they co-create the dynamic, right? And I actually use a diagram called the vulnerability cycle, which was created by Michelle Shankman and Mona Fishbane. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to still learn from Michelle Shankman in a supervision group situation. She's one of the senior faculty from the Ackerman Institute where I trained. And so I really use that to help them both understand, so what you were feeling, Joe, you were really feeling uncared for, like you weren't important to Mary. And yeah, that's what I felt. And that's a really hard way to feel. Mary, I know it wasn't your intention, but what are you hearing? Well, I didn't know that. He just yelled and screamed, and then he shut the door and left. Right? I didn't know he felt hurt. And then within that, I also do, I explore the families of origin. I always do a genogram with couples, because very often, it's not always from a family of origin, but very, very frequently, those really sensitive triggers are embedded in the families that they grew up in.
Right, absolutely.
Right,
their
exactly.
background.
Yeah, background
their culture
plays
and bringing.
brings a lot.
Absolutely. So what do you think is, and it's probably a very hard question to answer, but what do you think is at the top of what plagues most couples with being disharmonized?
Oh, that's a great question. I will say that I always ask people, what brings you to therapy and why now? Like, why now?
Okay.
Why this year? Okay, you've been in conflict for your entire marriage. It's been like this. Why now? Well, we had this really, really big fight and it just came to a head. Or there was some betrayal that was discovered. Sometimes it's just that we really don't communicate very well. And I think what happens is people, so when I draw those cycles, like people get into that, but they're not aware of it. Or they may say, oh, same old thing, right? He's yelling, I'm yelling, we're both, and then we never come back and repair it. We never hear each other. We never understand what's underneath. We have no empathy for each other because we're each so tied up in our own side of it. And so I think being able to understand what happens between them, now, look, when there's an affair or there's been some breach of trust, that's a whole other level of trauma. That's an emotional trauma in the relationship. And so there's obviously that when we look at the cycles, so let's say, and I'm being sexist, I'm being very heterosexist here when I discuss like a heterosexual couple where the man has an affair. Right? Okay. And so when that's happened, of course, they have to rebuild trust. But let's say it's a man who shuts down, or it wasn't safe to be close to his primary caretaker when he was growing up. And so it's hard for him to be close to his wife. So if he has one foot out of the relationship, then he's never has to worry that he's that close, right? Because he's somewhere else. He's not too invested. Or the primary caretaker wasn't safe because there was abuse from them, or there was mental illness and they just wanted to get away. So now they're in an adult relationship. Unconsciously, though, all of that still plays in the background, right? I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
no, but I'm sure you're going to get around to it.
Yeah. So the disharmony, we look at that. What is the dynamic between them? And I don't think there's any one thing, because one couple that doesn't communicate is different from another couple that doesn't communicate, right? Or one couple that has conflict is different from another couple that has conflict. I like to say, we human beings are like snowflakes. Nobody is the same. We're all different. Even if you have identical twins with the same DNA and the same parents that grow up in the same town and they share the same bedroom, they still go out in the world and they have their own experiences. They have
very different.
Yeah, interactions with people, with their parents, with each other. They experience things differently. And so I think the best answer to the question is when people get caught up in a cycle that's not useful, the dance that they do is not useful.
So if we could generalize it, if we could generalize some of the things that, like the top thing that, as you said, that dance that goes around, if we could generalize that one thing that seems to keep coming up or keep plaguing marriages that they just can't get off that merry-go-round.
Yeah. Okay. So if we look at the process of what happens between people, a lot of times it will be someone shuts down and someone pursues, or you could have pursue. You could have two people that shut down. Usually I don't see those people unless it's about sex, because we're not having sex, but we don't fight. We never fight. We're fine. We're good friends.
Because they both shut down.
Because they both shut down. Nobody creates any kind of confrontation or anything. Or they come in when it's just become so vapid or so empty that somebody just can't take it anymore. But I guess to generalize, right? If the person that shuts down can begin to stay present, and the person who pursues can calm their pursuit, and they both help each other to equalize, right? It moderates both. When somebody stays present and the other person maybe all of a sudden feels heard or like they're willing to be heard, then it's like, okay, I don't have to yell as hard or chase as hard. So that calms that, and vice versa. And which is a chicken and which is an egg thing, I'm not sure.
Exactly.
I got a question. So talk to me about the pursuit and the pursuit, because that seemed like that's a firestorm right there.
That is a firestorm, right? Those are the sessions I sit in and I say, stop.
You're more of a referee.
Right. Do you get your flag? Do you throw
it on the play?
Right. And sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes it really doesn't. When I used to be in person, I'm hoping to get back in person soon. Actually, this month I might go back for part-time in person. But it's really hard online to stop.
I was just getting ready to say that. It has to be. It has to be like, stop.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. So pursuit. You yell. It's like gas on the fire, gas on the fire, gas on the fire. And it just gets bigger. So then what finally happens? Well, then we don't talk for a week. And then eventually this is a common thing I'll hear. No, we don't talk. Sometimes it'll be a few days. Sometimes it'll be a week. It's been 2 weeks. We don't talk. And then eventually just one starts talking to the other. We forget we're not as angry anymore. So does it ever get repaired? Do you ever bring it back? No, we don't do that. Right. So that's another piece. So all this stuff gets swept. And right. Sometimes that's when people come. It's just too much and they can't do it anymore.
So they're constantly building on this pursuit. So you got pursuit. You got all this stuff. And then you just building on top of it. And then you get upset over something else and there's something else. And you just keep going up and up and up.
And so how do they get back to that where they
the original problem,
all of that,
right.
Or brush all of the stuff, get all of the dirt from under the carpet.
Right,
and
because it's not gone anywhere. It's still there.
And the funny thing is, even if it's been some really aggressive arguments, sometimes they'll both sit there and say, well, what did we fight about? What was it about? I don't remember.
Right,
I don't really remember. What was it? So it's not the issue. But when you can show people, it's like the dance that they do. It's up to them to make change in that. So, absolutely. And that's where mindfulness comes in too, because when you feel yourself escalating, right, you really need to get in touch with that. So you don't go into your normal pattern. Do something else. If you have to leave the room for a bit, leave. If you have a person who's triggered by abandonment issues, then make sure you have an agreement that if this happens, if I leave, this doesn't mean I don't love you. This doesn't mean I'm not coming back. This just means that right now I'm at a point where I can't control my emotions. And so it's better for me to step aside, but I'll be back and we can talk about it. Yeah.
That's a good point.
And I always say that, and we always say that you have those discussions when things are calm. You don't wait till the stuff hits the fan and you're in the heat of battle, so to speak. And then you say, well, I'm going to walk away now because I'm a little bit upset. Well, that's not going to fly. But if you set those ground rules ahead of time, then it'll be easy to deal with when that situation comes up.
Yeah, I was going to tune in on that. Also, I was just going to say that not only is it the issue that, we're at this, peak of elevation where we're both angry and neither one of us are listening. But as you said, but then when we're able to listen, I'm going to walk out. People have to be able to have those conversations to say, okay, as you said, I'm going to walk out, but it doesn't mean I love you, which means that now we're opening up other lines of communications, or we're trying to figure out, how do we handle it, but in a way that when we do come back together, no one's feelings are hurt or that we're not putting more dirt up under the rug, things like that. So that's important too. I think that was a great, what you said, people, letting your mate know, I may walk out, but doesn't mean that I don't love you. Doesn't mean that I don't care. These are things that should be kind of talked about prior to.
Absolutely. And they're, just things we do in therapy, right? Sometimes it's, I'm going to give you this signal means, this is what it means, right? And when you've done that exploration of someone's family, you know that, oh my goodness, this person's father left when they were 5
trigger.
And they never saw them again. So when their partner leaves and walks out, they are re-traumatized. It's like a PTSD. May not be conscious even. Right. But that unconscious music of our past is always playing in the background.
Yes.
We don't even know it's there, but it is. And our bodies remember. Bodies remember.
What do you say to couples or an individual that can't seem to get out of the past? Right. So, the music, for most people, the music is playing in the background. But for some people, the music is on now and it's blaring and everything is the past. You did this in the past. You did that. And so they can't seem to be, to move forward, to evolve, to kind of shed new skin in a sense, right? Let that go and move into a new type of relationship. What do you say to those people who hopefully, and lots of times they don't even realize it. They don't even know that they're still in the past, living in the present.
True. No, you're right. And, sometimes it is a very frank discussion about, look, and I will, I'll see couples together. I see them separately as well as, whatever combination I feel is needed. If there's a partner that's doing something like that, always bringing up the past and the other partner can't take it and they want to make the marriage work. Well, first of all, sometimes there are things that were never apologized for that somebody feels strongly for, weren't apologized in a way that they could take it in, right?
Okay.
So sometimes they're even if something happened a long time ago and it's still so present, it needs to be revisited and maybe apologized for. And sometimes it's a frank discussion that, look, with the person, first of all, what keeps you there? Because there's reasons, right? What's the secondary gain? Because if you keep doing that and you keep throwing those things in, how does that serve you?
Right.
What
exactly.
Because from my lens, it keeps you from being closer. You have a partner who wants to be close to you, but you keep doing this. And so it's that part of the exploration. And also just some if you don't stop, I'm concerned that this relationship may not make it. And you say you want it to. So let's talk about that, right? What is going on for you? And sometimes it's just I would probably do that. Not with the other partner present, because I think you want to, have some space for them to be more honest and be able to say whatever they need to say.
So let's take it a little further. Let's have that same question, but in a family setting. If you have maybe a child or two siblings or something, just a family dynamics that one is still living in the past, and it may have been something that was hurtful, or maybe it was, because I always tell my kids perceptions from the lens of an adult and a lens of a child, it's two different things, right? So what do you do in that setting where it's in a family setting and someone can't kind of move forward?
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Are you talking about a parent that can't get out of the past and keep saying, "Oh, my kid's going to screw up"? Or are you talking about
both? Let's just talk about all of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Because they're all out there. So
yeah, I with parents, right? When parents will come in with, say, an adolescent, right, and they'll say, "Oh, my kid is this, 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 this. What am I going to do?" Right? Look what they've done. They've done this, 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 and this.
So I hate to cut you off. Now let's fast forward. So now the parent doesn't have an adolescent anymore. They have an adult. And the parent is still doing that, same thing that they did. Well, my adolescent is this, but it's an adult child now.
It's an adult child. Yeah.
Okay. So,
okay. Good. No, very, very good. Right. And so then it really becomes about, first I ask, well, what do you worry about? If I had let's say a mother and adult daughter or adult son sitting in my office, I said, well, what is it? It sounds like when they were a kid, they did, certain things, and you're still, what are you most worried about? Right. Well, where are they now in life? Sometimes they do get stuck. I won't say that I've had that particular situation where an adult sees, although I have had adolescence where the parents still look at the emerging adult as a child, and they sort of can't get out of that. Oh wait, my kid is almost 20 now, and
right, exactly. Because almost 20 is still kind of 18, 19, but that's right.
But I think it's really highlighting the strengths and highlighting what's different. And look at your child; they have a job. They now. It's different. Maybe the kid is sitting on the couch all day and they have something going on, and then
and so they have a valid
and they have a point. But also, I still why? What is the dilemma of change there? What's keeping this child from launching? And very often you'll find that the child worries about the parent, right? Oh, if I was to go out there and be successful, my mom would be alone. Right? My dad's not around. My mom would be alone. So I need to be on this couch. Or it may be that I don't know that I can function in that world out there. I'm afraid because of these messages I've gotten my whole life that I'm not good enough. Right? And so very often you see around life cycle developmental markers, right? Going from grade school to junior high to high school to college to real world, getting married, a first child enters the picture. You can see things like, I'll always ask, well, what brings you now? What else is going on? Or if parents came in with concern about their child, what else is going on in the family? What's happening? Because usually there's something going on. And a life cycle change, a child who is trying to launch from finish college and into adulthood, or they stop college like 3/4 through and they just don't finish that last year. Well, why, right? Why? They're a smart person. They're fully capable. They got through the first 3 years. But when you've got that last year looming, oh no, am I going to be able to make it out there? Right. And so I'm always unpacking and looking at what else is there and what's really going on underneath. Underneath the surface is where the richness of the story lies. Yeah.
I never thought about that, like not finishing, like a college, and because, you could have done this, or you could have been on your way. But, really what is the underlying reason why you stopped or you didn't finish? Or is it just that you hadn't completed a lot of things leading up in your life, and that's just one of many, right? So it's not really a big deal. There's something to think about.
So going back to the question with, when you introduced yourself about, we joked about most of the problems come from the exterior sometimes, right?
Well, it's the system. It's the whole system. And
it's
how
the ecosystem that we're all embraced in.
That too. But how it was like the back of a clock metaphor. How things move and how they go, and if you change one, you're going to change it up. Yeah.
So I know that some of the couples that we've counseled, their issues stem from mixed families, right? Blended families where he has his and she has hers. They don't have any together, but how do they blend that? Because a lot of people are having some really difficult times because the problem doesn't lie between the two individuals that came together and decided to get married. It's the issues that come up when you go, okay, I thought we were going to handle it this way, and now you're handling. So we're still
you're not even paying attention to my point of view because it is your child.
And each mate is kind of looking at it individualized instead of as a couple, but they can't see that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you're right. They are difficult situations. Blended families present a lot of problems. That's just a fact. We can't extract that, we can't. It's like when I work with couples, I say the goal here is not to never have an argument. It's how it goes between you when you do have a difference of opinion.
Absolutely.
And I think it's the same thing. Interestingly, with blended families, the relationship that is most at risk is the relationship between the partners, right? Yeah. The second marriage or the third marriage, because it's each having their own children, right? It's that relationship between the partners that's very frayed. And I think it's the same kind of couples work. It's also some family work of how do they each interact with each other's children? What are the children like? What are their relationships like? And what are the boundaries there? Right. And generally, it's a good idea for the step parent to make good friends to not try and be the biological parent. And maybe that's different if a step parent comes in when the child is a baby. But if you're coming into a 12-year-old who's like, you're not my mom or you're not my dad,
Exactly,
right. Setting boundaries right up front.
Yeah. Right. So they're just going to make good friends and be more like, if you had a nanny, the nanny would go to a certain level, but it's the parent that would be the one to mete out the justice, to speak, right? And so it's a tricky road to navigate. It absolutely is.
And in that situation, would you recommend, family counseling or therapy instead of just couples counseling? Because oftentimes couples try to, like you said, it's their relationship at stake, but it entails so much more with the family, with the individual kids. So for couples out there that may be in blended situations and may be seeking therapy, would it be more beneficial to have family and couple or just the couple?
Yeah, I think it depends, right? Depends how old the kids are. It depends what's going on. I think a lot of times you can sort things out with a couple. You can bring the kids in without having them there by questions like, oh, so what do you think Susie would say if we asked her this question?
Okay.
What, and she would say, forget it, right? Or how do you think Susie would feel? How do you think Susie feels when that happens, right? When this situation occurs? And I think very often it is useful to bring in the kids. Absolutely, because you want their perspective. And just as when you're working with adults, you want to know each of their perspectives. The first question I ask when I get a couple that I sit down with is, from each of your perspectives, what brings you here? And if I have a family of 5 in the room, I'll ask the same question to the adults and to the kids, right? What do you think is the problem here in the family? What do you think the issues are?
Wonderful.
And it's nice. I mean, I think it would be wonderful for the kids in the situation to be heard. Because a lot of times they don't really pay a lot of attention to the kids.
I don't know. I think sometimes kids can be very deceitful.
I know they can. I know they can. I'm not saying
the two parents.
They do that too.
Yeah.
They do that, but they also have a legitimate beef, right? They have legitimate beef. I mean, they feel a certain way, and you can't tell them that they don't feel that way.
Absolutely.
Now, they may play both sides to the middle. Now, I give you that.
I agree with that. They may feel as though they're not being heard.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So now I want to talk about intimacy and the problems that occur with sex and intimacy. And how has the pandemic kind of played into that that stage of a relationship?
Oh yeah, the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic for all of us, right, has added a layer of intensity to life, a layer of anxiety, a layer of maybe more so in the beginning, fear. I don't know about you folks, but I was like, oh my God, I was on high alert all the time, washing all my groceries and just all the unknown.
And didn't want to open the mail. You got it.
And unfortunately, a lot of people are not able to transition out of that right now. Mentally.
They're still struggling with that. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
still very, very fearful. And I'm fortunate. My husband has to go out to work. So we were pretty okay during this time. I started working from home, but his job requires that he's there. So he's out the door still every day. Because even being home full time with him, well, he would go crazy because he just needs something to do. But think about that. And our children are older, but couples that have children at home, both parents working from home, they've already got their cycle that they're in, but maybe it's, diluted by the normal stuff of life. Right. Oh, we go out with friends, or you have a night with the guys, I have a night with the girls. The kids are out. We take them to grandma's for the weekend and we get a little bit of time to ourselves. But suddenly everybody's together on top of each other. And there was
no escape.
And there can be escalation of the patterns that are there, which of course can affect intimacy. Because when you're not in a space where you're like feeling warm and kindly to each other, then it can be hard to move closer physically. So
how do couples who may have been affected by the pandemic through intimacy, in regards to that, how do they slowly kind of gain that intimacy back, get back to where it used to be now that we're kind of opening up more and we're out more, but now we still have that void in our relationship, due to this?
Yeah. It's a good question. I would say most of the work I do is similarly focused, right? So whether it's been there was an affair and we haven't gotten back to having sex, or we sort of really got very intense over this pandemic and we just distanced. It's doing the couples work and helping them understand what happened between them. And if they're not yet comfortable bringing their bodies together for whatever reasons, right? They don't feel that they can do that. We start slow, right? Maybe it's just incorporating holding hands. Maybe we do an affection menu, and how can you just begin to get connected again? Maybe it is, maybe it's a sexual menu that includes they're going to just go home and hold each other and touch each other's bodies with their clothes on, right? So we can gradually, especially, if you're working with couples that haven't put their bodies together for years and years, they really may not feel comfortable just getting in bed together and beginning to touch each other. So you go at their pace and whatever they are ready for or want to. And also to expand the sexual menu beyond just, penetration, penetrative sex or even oral sex, to expand it to include whatever is sensual for them, whatever feels like connection for them. One of my mentors in the sex therapy field, her name is Suzanne Iasenza. She says that she defines sex as anything you wouldn't do with your neighbor. So she takes
she can way beyond the limits.
So she takes a very broad view of sex, right?
Yes.
Whether maybe that's just taking a walk and holding hands, maybe it's cuddling on the couch. Most of us wouldn't do that with our neighbor, right?
Right.
I wouldn't.
Right.
I wouldn't either.
Right. Expanding the walls of intimacy, including whatever is intimate to the individual.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. I think that sums up all my questions. So let's ask Wendi where people can find her and hear her and look her up.
Oh, you can find me on my website, wendydumbroftherapy.com. It's Wendi with an I. No, that's nobody knows that. Everybody spells it with a Y, but it's Wendi with an I. And I'm in New Jersey. I'm in Madison, New Jersey.
Okay. All right. And so do you take couples outside of Jersey?
I can't because my licensure is just in New Jersey.
All right. Very good. All right. Good question. Good answer. All right. Wonderful. Yeah. So if there's any viewers out there that's in that area, please give Wendi a call. All right. Yes. Seeking some couples therapy. Wonderful.
So you're right now, you're just strictly online, virtual?
Right. I have been virtual since March of 2020, but I believe that I am going to sometime this month get at least part-time back to my office.
Okay.
It was, at first it was hard to get used to, but it's kind of hard not to get out of it, right? It's so convenient. It's My commute is 5 seconds. So. It's unbeatable, right?
Yes.
I know. Yes.
And it's easy on gas.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
That's wonderful. I know. So many people are finding it so hard. Some people's like, I can't work from home. And now they're like, I can't imagine not working from home.
No, it was a struggle in the beginning for some, but now people are finding it's hard to go back to the office.
Yes. I am finding that.
Yes.
I am finding that. I'm very happily ensconced.
There's definitely some conveniences there. And I enjoy a lot of them. I'm like, do we have to go back in person?
Right.
So
it's like, we got to do an in-person meeting?
Everything must change, right? You have to be flexible.
Yes.
All right. So, Wendi, if you could drop one gem for couples out there, any couples, whether they're having difficulty, not having difficulty, they're in the doldrum state or whatever, what would be, something that you found through your 31 years of marriage and all of your years of therapy that could be very beneficial to any couple?
I think that we need to listen to hear and not to respond. we'll have time to respond. But listen to really hear what our partner is saying and take it in and let them know that we heard them. We'll have our time to respond later.
All right.
I think that would be the gem that I would offer.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Listen to hear.
Yes, not just to respond. We'll respond later. Wendi says, you're not responding. Just listen.
That's a T-shirt right there.
And then next week we'll respond. But
Right.
for right now, just listen.
It's like, hey, you know that thing I told you about? You didn't say anything. It's been a week now.
That's wonderful. All right. Well, thank you, Wendi. I think that sums it up for another episode with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Much appreciated.
It was
thank you for
pleasure.
thank you for being our guest. And as always,
we're in it to win it.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Lovin' Beyond the I Do podcast. Head over to iTunes to subscribe and leave a review. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Legendary Relationship, or visit our website at legendaryrelationship.com. Till next time, remember to make every day count.